What would you do if you came home to find your spouse in bed with someone else? What if that moment led to a violent confrontation, betrayal, and ultimately, a life-altering tragedy? This is the shocking true crime story of Abdulatif, one man's desperate search for the truth, and the deadly consequences that followed. On the 13th of November 2021, a tragic incident unfolded in the Itsako West local government area of Edo State, Nigeria. A young man named Abdulatif was brutally stabbed by his wife after a shocking confrontation in their home. This wasn't just any ordinary dispute. It was the culmination of a tumultuous, increasingly violent home environment that had been simmering for months. Abdulatif was a polygamous man, married to 2 women at the same time. By profession, he worked as a tipper driver, a job that kept him away from home for long hours. His job was demanding, and Abdulatif often found himself on the road, unable to be present in his home as much as he wanted. Originally, Abdulatif had only been married to 1 woman. But over time, he made the decision to marry a second wife. This decision would change the dynamics of his household in ways he never could have anticipated. His first wife, perhaps feeling betrayed, was not pleased with this addition. The introduction of the second wife into their home created immediate tension. What was supposed to be a family grew into a battlefield. When the second wife moved in, chaos soon followed. The first wife and the second wife clashed almost immediately. Their relationship was strained from the beginning, and they could hardly stand to be in the same room together. What began as verbal arguments quickly escalated into physical confrontations. There was no peace for Abdulatif. The 2 women would argue, shout, and engage in physical fights, creating an environment of constant tension and hostility. Abdulatif, caught in the middle, realized that the situation was not improving. His home, once a place of rest, had become a place of chaos. Despite his best efforts to mediate and calm the situation, it was clear that peace was unattainable. The 2 women simply could not coexist under the same roof. As the days passed, the conflict only intensified. Abdulatif, a man who had hoped to expand his family, now found himself trapped in a nightmare. The peace he had hoped for with the addition of a second wife was replaced with constant fighting and bitterness. He knew something had to change. What started as a decision to grow his family and build a life with 2 wives had spiraled out of control, leading to an environment of anger and resentment. Abdulatif faced an impossible dilemma, unsure of how to restore harmony in his household. Then, on that fateful day, November 13, 2021, Abdulatif's life would take a tragic turn. A decision years in the making was about to result in a devastating act of violence that no one saw coming. As time went on, Abdulatif's life became a constant balancing act between 2 wives, each with her own set of challenges. His home, which had once been filled with love and peace, had now turned into a place of constant chaos. The decision to take a second wife had led to nothing but strife, and Abdulatif found himself stuck between 2 women who couldn't stand each other. For the sake of peace, Abdulatif made a decision that seemed logical, one that he hoped would bring some sense of calm to his household. He chose to separate his 2 wives, thinking this would give them both the space they needed. He rented a house for his first wife to live in, away from the main home where he now lived with his second wife. The hope was that this arrangement would allow him to live a peaceful life with his second wife, while keeping the first wife in a space of her own. At first, things seemed to settle down. The first wife moved into the new house, and Abdulatif kept his visits to her limited, maintaining a delicate balance between his 2 households. His decision to separate them seemed like the only reasonable solution to the constant friction he had been facing. The tension in the home had finally started to subside. But what Abdulatif did not expect was what was about to unfold, a series of rumors that would unravel the delicate peace he had tried to create. Over time, Abdulatif began to hear whispers from neighbors, rumors that his second wife, the one he had trusted, was being unfaithful to him. At first, it was just hearsay, small talk that he chose to ignore. But the whispers kept growing louder. The gossip spread like wildfire, with neighbors claiming that when Abdulatif was away, his second wife would bring another man into their home. The rumors were persistent, and Abdulatif could no longer dismiss them as idle gossip. As a man who prided himself on loyalty and trust in his marriage, these allegations began to gnaw at him. He confronted his second wife, demanding the truth. But she, with fiery denial, brushed off the accusations, insisting that the rumors were baseless, just talk from people who had nothing better to do. Despite her vehement denials, Abdulatif's doubts continued to grow. He could feel that something wasn't right. The whispers, the stories, they just wouldn't go away. His mind began to race, and he knew that he needed to get to the bottom of this. He needed to know if the rumors were true or if he was just being manipulated by idle chatter. In a moment of desperation and determination, Abdulatif decided to take matters into his own hands. He knew that simply confronting his wife wouldn't be enough. He needed to see for himself, to be sure. So he devised a plan. He set a trap to catch her in the act. He carefully orchestrated his absence from home, making sure that everything seemed normal on the surface. He would be away for a while, but he wasn't going to leave things to chance. Abdulatif, though not a man to seek conflict, knew this was the only way to uncover the truth. The trap was set. He had to be patient and wait for the right moment, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to uncover something that would change everything. As the days passed, Abdulatif stayed out of sight. He had arranged things so that he would be away, and his second wife believed that he was simply working as usual. Little did she know that he was watching her every move, waiting for the moment when the truth would finally be revealed. And then, one day, the moment came. On the night of November 13, 2021, Abdulatif made a decision that would forever change the course of his life. After the constant rumors and mounting suspicions surrounding his second wife, he decided to put his doubts to the test. The stakes were high. He was about to face a truth that he couldn't escape, a truth that would either confirm his worst fears or offer a chance for reconciliation. Having heard whispers of his second wife's infidelity and finding little peace at home, Abdulatif had made plans to visit his first wife, leaving his second wife alone at home. Or so she thought. What Abdulatif didn't know at the time was that his second wife, the woman he trusted with his heart, had invited another man into their home. This wasn't just any man. It was the very person he had been warned about, the same man who had been the subject of countless rumors. The whispers had now turned into something far more serious, and Abdulatif wasn't willing to wait any longer. One of his neighbors, acting out of concern or perhaps a sense of duty, tipped him off. A man was in his house with his second wife. The moment Abdulatif heard this news, everything in his body told him that it was time to act. This was no longer just about rumors. This was about confronting the betrayal head-on. The truth had to come out, and Abdulatif decided to make a surprise visit back home. He had planned to be away for the night, but the rumors had pushed him to make an unexpected return. Around 3 a.m., when the world was quiet, Abdulatif returned to his house, his heart pounding with anticipation and dread. He didn't know what he would find, but he knew something wasn't right. His mind raced as he approached the door, but what awaited him inside would shake him to his core. As he stepped into his bedroom, the scene that met his eyes was enough to stop his heart. There, in the very place meant for him and his wives, he saw the man, his wife's lover, lying in bed with his second wife. The betrayal, which had been the subject of rumors, was now staring him in the face. The anger, jealousy, and heartbreak flooded through him in a wave of intense emotion. He had been betrayed in the most personal way, and there, in that moment, the world seemed to collapse around him. Without thinking, driven by a mixture of anger and betrayal, Abdulatif confronted the man. The confrontation quickly escalated. Words were exchanged, but it wasn't just words that followed. A physical struggle ensued as Abdulatif fought the man who had stolen his wife's heart. The tension in the room was thick, filled with rage, betrayal, and confusion. But just as Abdulatif thought he might have gained control of the situation, something unexpected happened. In a desperate act of self-preservation, Abdulatif's second wife, perhaps frightened of the violence unfolding, reached for a kitchen knife. In the heat of the moment, she stabbed Abdulatif in the stomach. The pain was immediate. The shock of it all left him reeling. His body went into shock as the blood poured from the wound, but it wasn't just the pain of the knife that hurt. It was the betrayal, the realization that the woman he loved and trusted had now turned on him in the most violent way. As Abdulatif stumbled back, struggling to comprehend what had just happened, the lover seized the opportunity to flee. The woman's lover made a run for it, escaping into the night. But the second wife, now alone in the chaos she had created, tried to cover her tracks. In a panic, she raised an alarm, hoping to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. She screamed for help, trying to create a scene to cover up the truth of what had transpired. But her plan quickly unraveled. The neighbors, already aware of the tension in the household, knew what had truly happened. The lies were transparent. The sounds of the struggle, the alarm that was raised, everything fell apart. The neighbors descended on the second wife, enraged by her actions. They were not fooled by her story. In an instant, she was caught in the fury of a community that had witnessed the betrayal firsthand. The woman was severely beaten, her attempts to make it seem like a robbery falling apart in the face of the truth. The police were called, and they arrived to find a scene of chaos and violence. Abdulatif, bleeding from the knife wound, was rushed to the hospital, his life hanging in the balance. The second wife, once a trusted partner, was arrested for her role in the violent attack. The neighbors, now fully aware of the betrayal that had taken place, watched as the woman was taken into police custody. The anger and frustration of the community had boiled over, and there was no escaping the consequences of her actions. The aftermath of the incident left everyone involved reeling. Abdulatif, wounded physically and emotionally, had to confront the reality of his broken marriage. Abdulatif later succumbed to his injury and died. The second wife, once the woman he trusted, had shattered everything with one violent act of betrayal. The lover who had caused this storm had escaped into the night, his identity still unclear. The police investigation continued, but for now, the details of how the case would unfold in the legal system remained uncertain. But one thing was clear: this was a case of passion, betrayal, and violence. It was a reminder that the consequences of infidelity can lead to outcomes no one could have predicted. As of now, the full details of the case with the police are not publicly available, but the hope remains that justice will be served. Abdulatif's life may have been shattered, but the truth is out. The story of his betrayal, the violence that followed, and the dramatic confrontation will linger in the minds of those who witnessed it, and in the hearts of those who understand the devastating effects of broken trust.